The year is 1945. The Pacific War, a brutal conflict that has raged for over 3 years, is nearing its final stages. The United States, having already secured numerous victories in the Pacific, is now focused on the ultimate objective: defeating Japan and ending the war. As part of this effort, the U.S. Army Air Forces are launching heavy bombing raids against the Japanese homeland, using their most powerful weapon, the B-29 Superfortress. The B-29 is a marvel of engineering, designed specifically for long-range bombing missions over Japan. With its pressurized cabin, advanced radar systems, and the ability to carry a payload of up to 20,000 pounds of bombs, it is a critical part of the U.S. strategy. Yet, despite its technological advantages, the B-29 is not invincible. As it ventures deeper into enemy territory, the risk of interception by Japanese fighters becomes a deadly reality. By mid-1945, Japan's air defense system is in disarray. The country's once proud Imperial Navy and Army Air Forces are on the defensive, struggling to cope with the relentless American air raids. The Zeros, Japan's iconic fighters, are still in use, but they are now outclassed by newer, more advanced American aircraft. However, they remain a formidable threat in the hands of skilled pilots. These Zeros, though aging, still have the speed, agility, and firepower to make short work of any bomber unfortunate enough to cross their path. The B-29 in question is on a mission to strike a key industrial target in Japan, part of the ongoing effort to cripple the Japanese war machine. The crew, experienced and battle-hardened, knows the risks all too well. As they approach the target, the tension in the cockpit is palpable. But the real danger lies not in the target area. It lies in the skies above them. Japanese Zero pilots are becoming increasingly desperate, willing to risk everything in one final attempt to protect their homeland from the relentless onslaught of American bombers. On the morning of June 19, 1945, this particular B-29 is flying a long, perilous route back to its base after completing its bombing run. The crew is exhausted, but there's a glimmer of relief on the horizon. They're almost home. As the aircraft flies over the Pacific, its engines hum steadily, the crew members chatting quietly among themselves. Their minds are momentarily at ease, but the shadow of danger looms ever closer. Far below them, the Japanese Navy is preparing for one last attempt to turn the tide of the war. The Zeros, expertly piloted by Japanese airmen, have been scrambled for one purpose: to hunt down and destroy the B-29. The attack is not a random act. It is a calculated effort to stop the Americans before they can cripple Japan's industrial heart. With a skilled pilot at the controls, the Zeros rise from their hidden positions, ready to strike. The sky above the B-29 darkens as the Zeros ascend. The crew, who had once felt the temporary safety of distance from the battlefield, now realizes that they are in the midst of an aerial storm. As the Zeros close in, the American crew knows their only hope for survival is to outmaneuver their attackers. But they are vastly outnumbered, facing an enemy intent on their destruction. The B-29, though a powerful weapon, is not designed for aerial dogfights. It is slow, heavily burdened by its payload, and vulnerable to enemy aircraft. In the cockpit, the pilot and crew brace for what seems to be an inevitable conclusion. Yet, in the next few moments, the fate of the entire crew will be determined by a single decision, a decision that will defy logic, physics, and the limits of human endurance. As the Zeros close in, the B-29 crew is well aware that their survival depends on their ability to adapt quickly. The bombers' flight crews have trained for these situations, but the reality of facing a superior, highly skilled enemy is a different matter altogether. In the skies above the Pacific, it is a constant game of cat and mouse. The American bombers must penetrate Japanese defenses, while the Zeros are tasked with preventing the raids from reaching their targets. The B-29 in this story is returning from just such a raid, and it is now caught in the crosshairs of Japanese fighter pilots who will stop at nothing to protect their homeland. The B-29 is on its return leg, heading west over the Pacific toward its base. The crew is exhausted from the long flight, and the mission has already taken its toll. Their nerves are still sharp, but the tension has eased slightly after the successful bombing run. This is supposed to be the easy part of the mission. They know there's a chance of encountering Japanese fighters, but after hours of flying deep into enemy territory, the crew is lulled into a false sense of security. They've done it before. They've flown countless bombing missions and faced enemy aircraft on numerous occasions, but nothing could prepare them for what's coming next. At 2 a.m., the first sighting is made. A lookout spots several dots in the distance. The call is made over the intercom. Bandits inbound. The Zeros, identified by their distinctive shape and maneuverability, appear out of nowhere. The Zeros are known for their speed and precision, and these pilots are no exception. Unlike the more clumsy American bombers, the Zeros are built for agility, capable of sudden, tight maneuvers that make them lethal in close combat. The Japanese pilots are not just intercepting, they are preparing for an all-out assault. The mission is clear: destroy the B-29 before it reaches the safety of its base. The numbers are stacked against the American crew, with 12 Zeros engaged in a coordinated attack. The crew members, many of them veterans of previous encounters, immediately spring into action. Gunners man their stations, preparing their weapons, while the pilot and co-pilot discuss their options. The radio crackles with the chatter of other B-29s in the formation, but the crew knows that they are now on their own, isolated in the vast expanse of the Pacific. The B-29's gunners open fire first, their machine guns tracing streams of tracer rounds into the night sky, but the Zeros are fast, darting in and out of range with precision. The B-29, with its heavy bomb load and large wingspan, is at a disadvantage. The aircraft's slow turn radius makes it an easy target for the nimble Japanese fighters. In the cockpit, the pilot watches as the Zeros dive in for the attack. He knows that the standard evasive maneuvers might not be enough. The B-29's speed is nowhere near that of the Zeros, and the attackers know how to exploit every weakness. But the crew of the B-29 is not without resources. They have their training, their experience, and their determination. As the first Zero dives in from the left, the B-29 responds with a sharp maneuver, banking to the right. This sudden change in course causes the attacking Zero to overshoot, but the pilot knows this will not be enough to shake the others. A single hit can bring down the massive B-29, and the Zeros are circling like sharks, waiting for the right moment to strike. As the attack intensifies, the B-29's tail gunner reports taking hits. The aircraft's wing is grazed by enemy fire. The crew feels the tremor of the impact, but the B-29 continues to fight on. The pilot, realizing the immediate danger, decides to take a calculated risk. He knows that his aircraft cannot outrun the Zeros, but it can outmaneuver them, if only for a moment. The pilot issues his orders calmly but decisively. Prepare for evasive action. He grips the yoke and begins to pull the aircraft into an unexpected turn. It is a decision that will define the outcome of the battle. The maneuver is a high-speed, hard turn, a move that the B-29 was never designed to make. The aircraft shudders under the stress of the sudden movement, and for a moment, it feels as if the plane might break apart. The crew is thrown against their harnesses, the G-forces pressing them down into their seats. The B-29's engines scream as the pilot forces the plane into a tighter arc. The Zeros, momentarily thrown off balance by the B-29's unexpected move, hesitate for just a split second. That hesitation is all the time the B-29 needs. The Zeros break their coordinated attack as the B-29 rolls sharply, veering off its initial path and into the clouds. The maneuver has worked. The B-29 is alive, its crew stunned but breathing. The pilot, shaking from the effort, knows the danger is far from over. But for the moment, they've made it through the first wave. The Zeros regroup, but the B-29 is no longer an easy target. The human angle. In the moments before the attack, the crew of the B-29 is focused, methodical, but far from anxious. They've been through this before. Countless missions over enemy territory, where danger is always lurking in the form of Japanese fighters. The crew members, though tense, are used to the constant strain of combat flying. But this night feels different. As the Zeros close in, each crew member instinctively knows that the stakes are higher than ever before. The pilot, Captain Robert Anderson, is the first to notice the formation of Zeros approaching from the horizon. He's no stranger to high-pressure situations. Having flown multiple bombing missions, he has developed an intuition for combat. Yet, when the alarm is raised, there's no time for hesitation. The calm, focused leader takes charge, issuing commands with quiet authority, his voice steady over the intercom. He doesn't show fear, though his mind races. He knows that the Zeros are formidable, and that his crew's survival will depend on his ability to make a split-second decision. In the back of the B-29, the gunners ready their weapons. Sergeant William Bill Carter, the tail gunner, positions himself at his station, eyes scanning the darkness for any movement. His pulse quickens as the Zeros approach, and though he's seen the enemy close up in previous encounters, the sheer number of aircraft now charging at them makes him feel a surge of anxiety. He steadies his breath, his finger hovering over the trigger. The bombardier, Lieutenant James Turner, maintains his focus on the instruments in front of him, aware that his role has now shifted from guiding the mission's target to simply surviving the attack. He has worked closely with the pilot for months, and his trust in Anderson's ability is unwavering. Yet, in the moment of imminent danger, even the most seasoned bomber crew members cannot escape the surge of fear that comes with facing death at such close quarters. The tension in the cockpit is palpable as Captain Anderson makes the decision to attempt the impossible. As the aircraft banks sharply, the crew is slammed against their seats by the sudden change in G-forces. The noise is deafening, and for a split second, everything goes silent, except for the scream of the B-29's engines and the pounding of their hearts. Anderson's grip tightens on the yoke, every muscle in his body straining as he forces the B-29 into the sharpest turn it's ever made. The crew, though trained for such situations, feels the raw power of the maneuver push them to their limits. In the face of imminent death, the human element, fear, courage, trust, is laid bare. For the crew of the B-29, the stakes have never been higher, and their only hope for survival lies in their ability to function as one cohesive unit under the most extreme pressure imaginable. The tactical angle. The battle in the skies above the Pacific is not simply one of brute force. It is a game of tactics, where every decision, every movement, can determine the outcome of the battle. The Zeros, fast and agile, are the primary weapon in Japan's defense against American bombers. These aircraft, though aging, are still a formidable threat when piloted by skilled aviators. The tactics employed by the Japanese pilots are centered on precision and coordination. The Zeros, known for their ability to perform tight, high-speed turns, have the advantage in a dogfight. Their primary tactic is to approach the bomber from multiple angles, overwhelming the defenders and finding any weakness in the bomber's defense. For the B-29, this mission is not about dogfighting or taking down the enemy. The bomber's primary objective is to carry out its mission and return home, but this is not always possible when facing such an overwhelming threat. The B-29's design, while perfect for bombing runs, does not lend itself well to close combat. It is slow, heavily laden with bombs, and its large wings make it an easy target for the nimble Zeros. In this moment, the bomber is completely at the mercy of the Zeros' tactics, unless the crew can outsmart the attackers. The Japanese pilots, well-trained and disciplined, are executing a textbook attack, breaking into groups, attacking from above and below, and coordinating their strafing runs to force the bomber into a defensive posture. Their objective is clear: destroy the B-29 before it can make it home. They know that a direct attack is their best chance of success, and the B-29, unable to outrun them, must rely on its defensive gunners and the quick thinking of its crew to survive. But the B-29 crew is not without its own tactical responses. The pilot, Captain Anderson, knows that the only way to survive this assault is to break the attacker's formation. It's a high-risk, high-reward strategy, but the alternative is certain death. His maneuver, the sudden sharp turn, is designed to throw the Zeros off their coordinated attack. By making the B-29 an unpredictable target, he forces the Zeros to adjust mid-attack, disrupting their momentum and making it harder for them to hit their target. It's a calculated gamble, and it relies on the B-29's ability to perform a maneuver that was never designed into its design. A maneuver that pushes the aircraft beyond its intended limits. For the Zeros, the initial confusion that follows the B-29's evasive action is costly. The American bomber becomes less predictable, and as the Zeros break off their attack to reassess, they lose the advantage. But the Japanese pilots are not easily deterred. They regroup and prepare for another assault, knowing that the B-29 is now vulnerable and the battle is far from over. In the face of overwhelming odds, the role of leadership becomes crucial. For Captain Robert Anderson, this is not just about flying an aircraft. It's about the lives of his crew and the mission's success. The situation is dire, and the crew looks to him for direction, knowing that every decision he makes could be the difference between life and death. Leadership in this moment is defined not by bold speeches or grand gestures, but by calm, decisive action. As the first Zero closes in, Anderson quickly assesses the threat. He understands that his aircraft, while formidable in terms of payload and range, is not built for combat evasion. The Zeros, with their speed and maneuverability, have the clear upper hand in a direct confrontation. He knows that no amount of firepower or defensive gunners will be enough if they simply remain on their current course and continue to absorb the attack. His mind races through possible options, calculating the risk of each. Then, in a moment of clarity, Anderson makes his decision. He orders a hard turn, pushing the B-29 to perform a maneuver that is almost unheard of for such a massive aircraft. The move is reckless, defying the plane's design specifications, and it requires an incredible amount of precision to execute. Anderson's training and experience have taught him how to read a battlefield, but in this instance, it's his gut that tells him this is the only chance they have. As the aircraft responds to his commands, the crew is thrown violently to one side, their bodies pressed against the seats by the G-forces. The sharp turn pushes the B-29 to its limits, and for a brief moment, it feels as if the plane might break apart. The aircraft groans under the pressure, its wings bending in ways they were never designed to. The cockpit is filled with the sound of the engines straining, and Anderson's face is set in grim determination. His heart pounds, his hands shake, but his resolve remains unshaken. His leadership in this moment is not just about giving orders. It is about believing in his crew and his aircraft, and trusting that they can accomplish the impossible. The Zeros, momentarily caught off guard, are forced to adjust their tactics. The formation breaks, their coordinated attack disrupted. For a split second, the attackers lose their rhythm, and the B-29 has the opportunity to recover. Anderson's quick thinking has bought the crew precious seconds, but the battle is far from won. The Zeros will soon regroup and come at them again, but Anderson has proven that, in the face of crisis, his leadership can turn the tide. The enemy angle? On the other side of the attack, the Japanese pilots in their Zeros are also operating under immense pressure. For them, the mission is not just about defeating an enemy bomber. It is about protecting their homeland from an unstoppable American assault. The pilots are highly trained, and their Zeros are a symbol of Japan's aerial might, sleek, fast, and deadly. But even the best pilots are not invincible, and as the battle against the B-29 intensifies, it becomes clear that the odds are heavily stacked against the Japanese. The lead Zero pilot, Captain Akira Tanaka, is a seasoned veteran of the Imperial Japanese Navy. His reputation as a skilled fighter pilot precedes him, and his tactics have earned him the respect of his comrades. As he spots the B-29 in the distance, he knows this will be a decisive moment. The bomber must be destroyed if Japan is to have any chance of slowing down the American bombing campaign. Tanaka leads his squadron in a coordinated attack, splitting the Zeros into groups to hit the B-29 from multiple angles. The first wave of attacks is swift and overwhelming. Tanaka's Zeros dive from above, strafing the bomber with heavy machine gun fire. The B-29's defensive gunners return fire, but their aim is largely ineffective against the speed and agility of the Zeros. The Americans are forced into a defensive posture, and Tanaka believes the fight is already over. He knows that if they can maintain the pressure, the B-29 will soon be a burning wreck, plummeting into the Pacific below. However, Tanaka's confidence soon turns to frustration. As the B-29 begins to maneuver unexpectedly, Tanaka realizes that something is not right. The bomber's evasive action throws off his attack, and he is forced to break off to avoid crashing into his own squadron. The tight formation that had made the Zeros so deadly is now fractured, and for the first time in the attack, the Japanese pilots lose their advantage. From Tanaka's perspective, the B-29's turn is a shocking move. He has seen bombers before, and he knows they are not designed for agility. The sudden shift in the bomber's path catches him and his squadron off guard. For a moment, the Zeros seem disoriented, trying to readjust and maintain their pursuit of the bomber. Tanaka, unable to re-establish the attack immediately, is forced to regroup his forces. What follows is a tense few moments. Tanaka and his pilots are now engaged in a battle of wills with the B-29 crew. The Japanese pilots' resolve is tested as they attempt to recover from the disruption caused by Anderson's bold maneuver. The Zeros are deadly, but the B-29 has shown a new level of unpredictability, and Tanaka realizes that this battle may not be as one-sided as he once thought. The Zeros regroup quickly, their confidence shaken but not broken. For Captain Akira Tanaka, the first attack's failure is a blow to his pride, but his determination to complete the mission remains unyielding. The B-29, though damaged and clearly struggling, has momentarily escaped the clutches of the attack. Tanaka knows that this is not just about destroying a bomber. It is about halting the relentless American bombing campaign that is crippling Japan's war effort. The stakes have never been higher. His squadron regains its formation, and with steely resolve, Tanaka orders a second wave of attacks. The B-29, battered but still flying, is trying to regain its bearings. The crew is shaken by the ferocity of the assault, but their training and experience have kicked in. They know they have only a limited window of time before the Zeros come at them again, and this time they must be ready. The pilot, Captain Anderson, is exhausted, but his mind is sharp. He knows that the Zeros will not hesitate to finish the job. The crew's only hope lies in one final desperate move, the one move that will decide their fate. As the Zeros close in, Anderson calculates the risks one last time. The B-29, already strained by the previous maneuver, is not built for more extreme evasion. The aircraft is heavy, sluggish, and its engines are near their breaking point. But Anderson's options are dwindling. He knows that if the Zeros are allowed to close the distance again, they will strike with deadly precision. The only way to survive, the only way to make it out of this alive, is to take the gamble. With a final glance at the instruments, Anderson gives the order. Hold on tight. With the Zeros coming in fast from all directions, the B-29 banks once more, this time even more sharply than before. The aircraft lurches violently, the wings straining under the pressure. Anderson pushes the yoke with every ounce of strength he has, knowing that every second counts. The plane is a massive, lumbering beast, and yet, in this moment, it dances with the precision of a much smaller craft. The Zeros, unable to match the B-29's unpredictable movements, are forced to break formation again. It is a stunning, breathtaking maneuver. And it is just enough. The attacking Zeros, momentarily disoriented, begin to fall behind. The B-29, now in full evasive mode, begins to climb, its engines whining in protest as they push harder than ever before. The sky around them is a battlefield, with tracer rounds and bullets streaking past in every direction. But for the briefest of moments, it seems as though the B-29 has escaped the worst of it. Then, the silence. The Zeros, now separated and struggling to reorient themselves, hesitate. For Tanaka, the pause feels like an eternity. His squadron is scattered, their initial advantage now lost. The B-29 has not only survived, it has taken control of the moment. The Japanese pilots, accustomed to overwhelming their targets with sheer speed and force, are now at a loss. The bomber has shown an unexpected resilience, and the squadron leader knows that their window to strike is rapidly closing. For Captain Anderson and his crew, the moment of relief is fleeting. The Zeros may have broken off their immediate assault, but the battle is far from over. The Zeros, though disoriented, are still lethal, and they will not stop until their target is destroyed. The B-29, already battered and near the limits of its endurance, is a prime target. The crew, physically and mentally exhausted, knows this escape will only be temporary unless they can outlast the Zeros and make it back to safety. Anderson's mind is focused solely on the task ahead. He knows the Zeros will regroup quickly, and if they come at them again, he must make one final decision. The aircraft is pushing past its designed limits, the engines are screaming for relief, and the wings feel as though they might snap under the strain of the sudden maneuvers. Yet, there is no time to rest. Every moment they spend in the air is a moment closer to being shot down. In the distance, the Zeros are circling. Tanaka, his frustration mounting, is determined to finish what he started. He regains his composure and signals for the attack. His squadron forms up once again, and with terrifying precision, they dive for the B-29. This time, they will not be caught off guard. As the Zeros descend, Anderson is ready. He knows that if they attempt the same maneuver again, they might not survive. The B-29 is running low on fuel, and its defenses are severely compromised. The gunners report multiple hits, the tail section is taking on more damage, and the aircraft's structural integrity is in question. The crew holds their breath, hoping for one more chance to break free. Then, at the last moment, Anderson spots something in the distance. The coastline. It's not much, but it's enough. The B-29 is closer to friendly territory than it was a few minutes ago. They are not out of danger yet, but the sight of land gives the crew renewed hope. With the Zeros hot on their tail, Anderson pushes the bomber toward the horizon, knowing that every second counts. But the Zeros, like sharks in a feeding frenzy, are relentless. They close in for the final assault, their guns flashing in the moonlight as they draw closer. This time, there is no turning back. The B-29, already on the brink of collapse, cannot take another hit. The pilot knows that only one thing will keep them alive. They must break free of the attackers, and they must do it now. Anderson takes a deep breath. There is one last move, one last chance. The B-29 is sluggish, barely responding to the controls, but Anderson pushes it once more, turning the aircraft into the final desperate twist of fate. With a final, brutal lurch, the B-29 banks hard again, using the last of its speed and momentum to throw the Zeros off course. The attack falters once more. In the distance, the Zeros hesitate, unable to land a decisive blow. The B-29, despite its damage and strain, has survived once again. The squadron, now too far from their target, is forced to break off. Tanaka, looking down at the bomber from above, realizes that the battle has been lost. His squadron, though still intact, has failed to bring down the B-29. The B-29, battered and limping, is still alive. As it continues its flight toward the safety of its base, the crew allows themselves a brief moment of relief. They have survived a deadly encounter, one that should have been their end. But as they push on, it is clear that the decision made by Anderson, in that brief moment of impossible clarity, has saved them all. As the B-29 limps toward its base, the crew's nerves begin to settle, but their bodies are still rigid with tension. The strain of the harrowing encounter lingers in their muscles, but it is overshadowed by a deep sense of gratitude. They have made it through. Against all odds, the pilot, Captain Anderson, continues to push the bomber forward, his hands steady on the controls despite the fatigue that clouds his mind. The sight of the coastline in the distance, though still far away, promises safety. A promise that had seemed so uncertain just minutes before. But the toll on the aircraft is evident. The Zeros' attack has left scars on the B-29, with holes puncturing its fuselage and smoke trailing from its engines. The tail gunner reports the damage in a grim tone, noting the gaping holes in the plane's rear. The once pristine superfortress is now a battered shell, a testament to the ferocity of the attack it has endured. Its heavy bomb load has kept the plane's center of gravity in check, but it's now clear that the bomber's endurance has been stretched to the breaking point. The crew members, still in shock from the suddenness of the battle, begin to assess their situation. The co-pilot, Lieutenant Charles "Chuck" Walker, runs through the aircraft's systems, ensuring the fuel levels and vital signs are stable. The bombardier, Lieutenant James Turner, examines the damage to the bomb bay, making sure that none of the bombs have been dislodged. Despite the damage, the bomber's ability to carry out its mission has not been compromised, but it will be a miracle if they make it home in one piece. Back in the cockpit, Anderson allows himself a brief moment of reflection. The intense focus required to survive the attack has left him physically drained, but he knows that the worst is not yet over. They are still over the vast expanse of the Pacific, and the journey home is far from certain. he adjusts the aircraft's flight path, carefully calculating the fuel needed to make it back to base. The decision to take the hard turn had been a gamble, one that required not only skill, but an element of sheer willpower. But it worked. The Zeros had been thrown off balance, their attack disrupted just long enough for the B-29 to escape. As the bomber continues its flight, the crew members exchange words in hushed tones, recounting the battle they have just survived. The tail gunner, Sergeant William Bill Carter, offers a quiet remark on the bravery of the pilots. He had never seen a maneuver like that, and though his role is to protect the tail, he knows that it was the pilots' courage that saved them. The crew members know that they are not just a team of soldiers, they are a family, bound together by their shared experience. And in that moment, they all understand that their survival was not just the result of luck, but the result of Anderson's quick thinking, leadership, and the unwavering resolve of every single crew member. But the journey is not over yet. As the bomber approaches the base, the crew knows they must be ready for a potential emergency landing. The landing gear is untested, and the aircraft is heavily damaged. The radio crackles with the voices of other B-29s, their voices offering both comfort and concern as they prepare for their own landings. The B-29's fate will not be decided until its wheels touch the runway. As the B-29 finally approaches the airfield, the crew prepares for a rough landing. The bomber, battered and broken, is no longer the imposing, powerful aircraft it once was. The landing gear, stressed by the previous evasive maneuvers, groans under the weight. The engines, already strained from the intense combat, sputter occasionally, but they hold steady, a testament to the resilience of both the aircraft and its crew. Captain Anderson's grip tightens on the yoke as he lowers the plane into a controlled descent. His mind is sharp despite the exhaustion, focusing on every small detail of the landing. The runway is in sight, but there is no guarantee that the damaged B-29 will survive the impact. The entire crew holds their breath as the bomber makes its final approach. The Zeros may have been repelled, but the real battle for survival is far from over. The landing, the final hurdle, could still end in disaster. As the wheels touch the runway, there is a sudden jolt, harder than expected, but not catastrophic. The B-29 skids, its tires screeching against the tarmac. Anderson applies the brakes with all his strength, coaxing the aircraft to a halt. The crew exhales in unison. They have made it. The B-29, though badly damaged, has safely returned to base. The mission that should have ended in their deaths has concluded with them alive and intact. The airfield crew rushes to meet the bomber, their eyes wide in disbelief at the sight of the heavily damaged aircraft. The B-29's once sleek surface is marred by bullet holes, and its fuselage is streaked with oil and smoke. The tail section bears the brunt of the attack, but remarkably, the aircraft remains in one piece. The crew disembarks, each member physically drained, but their faces showing a mixture of exhaustion and relief. They have survived against the odds, not by chance, but through courage, quick thinking, and teamwork. The aftermath of the battle is felt immediately. The crew is debriefed, and the damage to the B-29 is documented. The bomber's structural integrity is compromised, and it will be out of commission for some time. But the importance of the mission and the survival of the crew outweigh the damage. The report, sent to higher command, highlights the heroism of the crew, particularly Captain Anderson, whose bold, unorthodox maneuver has been credited with saving the aircraft and its crew. But the larger consequences ripple out beyond this single encounter. The Zeros, despite their relentless pursuit, have failed. Their attack, though well coordinated and intense, was unable to down the B-29. This failure underscores a critical shift in the balance of power. The Zeros, once the dominant force in the Pacific skies, are no longer able to match the overwhelming technological superiority of the American bombers. The tide of the war is turning, and the United States, with its bombers and superior tactics, is slowly but surely gaining the upper hand. For the Japanese, the failure to bring down the B-29 signals the diminishing effectiveness of their aerial defenses. The Zeros, though skilled, are outdated, and they can no longer stem the tide of American air superiority. In the broader context of the war, this loss is just one more sign that Japan's ability to defend itself is rapidly deteriorating. The B-29 crew, though unaware of the far-reaching implications of their survival, has become part of a larger strategic shift in the Pacific. As for Captain Anderson and his crew, their survival is nothing short of miraculous. The decision he made to take the risk of executing the impossible turn is now seen as one of the defining moments of their mission. It is a decision that not only saved their lives, but also reaffirmed the importance of leadership, split-second judgment, and the willingness to take risks in the face of overwhelming odds. In the days that follow, the crew's story spreads through the base. They are hailed as heroes, their courage and resourcefulness becoming the stuff of legend among their fellow airmen. But for Anderson and his crew, the real reward is the simple fact that they made it back. They have lived to fight another day, and in doing so, they have proven that even in the most dire of circumstances, it is possible to defy the odds and survive. The battle that unfolded over the Pacific on June 19, 1945, was one of many in the relentless air war between the United States and Japan, yet it serves as a stark reminder of the power of human will and the unpredictable nature of combat. For Captain Robert Anderson and his crew, the impossible turn that saved them was more than just a tactical maneuver. It was a demonstration of the capacity for bravery, adaptability, and leadership in the most perilous of circumstances. It was the culmination of years of training, experience, and, above all, a deep sense of responsibility to each other. As the war in the Pacific neared its end, this encounter highlighted the ever-changing nature of warfare. While the B-29 Superfortress symbolized technological advancement, it was the human decision-making, the leadership under fire, that ultimately made the difference. In a moment where the aircraft's design and speed were at their limits, it was Anderson's choice to defy the aircraft's natural limitations and take a daring chance that altered the course of the engagement. This was not simply a victory of technology over technology, but of human determination over seemingly insurmountable odds. In the larger context, this event marked more than just the survival of a single bomber. It was a reflection of the broader shift in the war's momentum. The Japanese Zeros, once the terror of the Pacific skies, were no longer a match for the overwhelming American superiority in both numbers and technology. Yet, even as Japan's air defense was faltering, these last-ditch efforts by the Zeros reminded both sides of the relentless spirit of combat that defined the conflict. For Anderson and his crew, the emotional weight of the encounter would linger. Though they would return to the relative safety of their base, the psychological scars of their close call would remain. But it was not just the close brushes with death that would stay with them. It was the camaraderie they shared, the bond formed in the heat of battle, that would shape the rest of their lives. They had survived, not because of sheer luck, but because of a shared purpose and a collective will to endure. They would carry this with them long after the war had ended. In history, many such moments are forgotten, overshadowed by larger battles or broader strategic decisions. But for the crew of that B-29, their story is one of those rare moments where the actions of a single individual under the weight of unimaginable pressure, can change the course of an event, saving not just lives, but the spirit of the men who fought together. In the face of overwhelming odds, they proved that survival is not simply about avoiding death. It is about making the right decisions at the right time, and never giving up.